What if the reason nothing excites you anymore is not because your life has become meaningless, but because your heart has been searching for happiness in the wrong places? You may not need more people, more attention, or more excitement. You may simply need to change where your heart is looking. And these 5 lessons may help you understand why you feel this way and how to find your happiness again. 1. When nothing feels good anymore, stop forcing yourself to be happy. Sometimes the hardest part of feeling empty is not the emptiness itself, but the pressure you put on yourself to feel better immediately. You wake up and tell yourself, I should be grateful, I should be happy, I should enjoy this. But the more you force happiness, the further away it seems. Understand this clearly. Not every difficult season means something is wrong with you. Sometimes your heart is simply tired. Sometimes you have carried disappointment, stress, rejection, expectations, and silent pain for so long that even the things you once enjoyed no longer reach you. In that moment, do not fake happiness just to convince people that you are okay. Slow down and be honest with yourself. Allah already knows what is inside your heart, so you do not need to hide it from Him. Speak to Him about what you cannot explain to anyone else. Give yourself permission to heal without rushing the process. Happiness often returns when you stop chasing the feeling and start rebuilding your heart through prayer, gratitude, rest, meaningful action, and trust in Allah. You do not need to feel amazing today. You only need to take one sincere step toward peace. 2. Stop waiting for people to make your life feel meaningful. One of the quickest ways to lose your happiness is to make another person responsible for giving your life meaning. You start believing that you will finally feel complete when someone loves you more, notices you, stays with you, supports you, or gives you the attention you have been missing. But people are human. Their moods change, their priorities change, and sometimes even people you deeply love cannot give you what your heart is searching for. If your happiness depends completely on their presence, every distance will feel like rejection and every silence will feel like pain. Your life was never meant to become empty just because someone stopped showing up the way you hoped. Allah gave you purpose before that person entered your story. Build routines you respect, pursue things that benefit you, spend time with people who bring goodness, strengthen your relationship with Allah, and learn to enjoy moments that belong only to you. Love people without making them the center of your entire existence. When Allah becomes your foundation, you can appreciate people without collapsing when they change. 3. If people control your mood, you will never feel peace. There is something dangerous about allowing other people to decide what kind of day you are going to have. Someone speaks kindly to you and suddenly you feel valuable. Someone ignores you and your entire mood changes. Someone replies late and you begin overthinking. Someone praises you and you feel confident, but the moment they criticize you, all that confidence disappears. If this keeps happening, you are not living with peace. You are living according to the behavior of other people. And people are too unpredictable to become the foundation of your emotional stability. They will have bad days, they will misunderstand you, they will disappoint you. Some will change without explaining why, and others may never treat you the way you believe you deserve. If every action they take has the power to disturb your heart, you will spend your life emotionally exhausted. You have to learn that another person's behavior does not automatically deserve control over your inner world. Someone can be rude without you becoming angry for the rest of the day. Someone can reject you without you deciding that you are worthless. Someone can walk away without taking your purpose with them. Someone can misunderstand you without forcing you to spend hours proving yourself. This is where emotional strength begins. It is not about becoming cold, heartless, or pretending that nothing hurts. It is about refusing to hand people a remote control to your peace. Ask yourself how many beautiful days you have already lost because of one person's words. How many nights have you spent replaying a conversation that the other person probably stopped thinking about hours ago? How many times have you allowed a message, a comment, a facial expression, or someone's silence to determine how you feel about yourself? At some point, you must decide that your heart is too valuable to be controlled so easily. Before reacting, create space between what happened and what you choose to do with it. Not every comment requires an answer. Not every misunderstanding requires an explanation. Not every person deserves access to your emotions. Sometimes the strongest response is to remain calm, make dua, protect your character, and continue with your day. You cannot control how everyone treats you, but you can work on how much power their behavior has over you. And this becomes easier when your heart is connected to Allah. When you know that Allah sees what people do not see, you stop desperately trying to make everyone understand you. When you know your worth is not decided by human approval, rejection becomes easier to carry. When someone disappoints you, remind yourself that people were never meant to be perfect sources of peace. Your deepest stability must come from something greater than them. Do not wake up every morning and hand the keys to your happiness to whoever happens to enter your day. Protect your peace. Guard your heart. Let people be responsible for their behavior while you remain responsible for yours. The moment you stop allowing every person to control your emotions, you begin experiencing a freedom that attention, approval, and validation could never give you. 4. You may not need a new life, you may need a new focus. Sometimes when nothing excites you anymore, you begin believing that your whole life needs to change. You imagine that happiness is somewhere else. Maybe you need a different job, different friends, a different home, more money, a new relationship, or an entirely new beginning. You look at your current life and think, if I could just escape all of this, maybe I would finally feel alive again. But before you try to change everything around you, ask yourself a more important question. What have you been focusing on every single day? Because sometimes your life is not as empty as it feels. Your attention has simply become trapped in everything that is missing. If you wake up thinking about what you do not have, spend the day comparing yourself to people who appear to have more. Remember every person who disappointed you, replay every mistake you made, and go to sleep worrying about what might go wrong tomorrow. Then even a life full of blessings can begin to feel miserable. Your mind becomes so trained to search for problems that it stops recognizing mercy. You can have food on your table and only think about what you cannot afford. You can have people who genuinely care about you and still spend your energy thinking about the one person who walked away. You can have another day of life in front of you and treat it as worthless because it does not look like the future you imagined. This is why changing your focus can change the way you experience your entire life. Focus does not mean pretending your problems are not real. Islam does not ask you to deny pain or smile through everything as though nothing hurts. You can acknowledge that something is difficult while still refusing to make that difficulty the center of your existence. You can be disappointed and still notice what Allah has protected you from. You can be waiting for one dua to be answered while remaining grateful for countless blessings you never had to ask for. You can be healing from something painful while still allowing yourself to enjoy a peaceful morning, a conversation with someone you love, a meal, a walk, a prayer, or a quiet moment in which your heart finally feels calm. Many people destroy today's peace because they are constantly waiting for tomorrow to become perfect. They tell themselves, I will be happy when I earn more. I will be happy when I get married. I will be happy when this problem ends. I will be happy when people finally respect me. I will be happy when Allah gives me what I have been asking for. Then one goal arrives and another problem appears, so happiness gets postponed again. If you train yourself to live this way, you can spend years waiting for a perfect season that may never exist. There will always be something unfinished, something uncertain, or something you wish could be different. Boy, you have to learn to live while life is still imperfect. Look carefully at what you feed your mind. If your first action every morning is to open your phone and watch other people's lives, you may begin your day feeling behind before you have even left your bed. You see someone traveling, someone succeeding, someone getting married, someone buying something you cannot afford, and suddenly the ordinary blessings in your own life seem small, but you are comparing your complete reality with selected moments from somebody else's life. You do not see their fears, arguments, loneliness, disappointments, or private tests. You only see what they chose to show you, and then you use it as evidence that your life is not good enough. Protect your focus. Not everything deserves your attention simply because it appears in front of you. Not every opinion deserves space in your mind. Not every piece of bad news needs to become part of your emotional world. Not every person's success is a reminder of your failure. Sometimes you need to step away from the noise long enough to hear your own thoughts again. Reduce what constantly makes you compare. Distance yourself from conversations that leave you bitter. Stop repeatedly checking people who disturb your peace. Give your mind a chance to become quiet. Then begin placing your attention on things that actually strengthen you. Focus on improving one small part of your life instead of hating the whole thing. If your body feels tired, improve your sleep and movement. If your days feel meaningless, give yourself a responsibility worth completing. If your heart feels spiritually empty, begin repairing your salah instead of waiting for some dramatic feeling of iman to appear. If your environment feels chaotic, clean one small space. If you feel disconnected from everyone, call someone good for you rather than waiting for people to notice your silence. Small changes matter because they give your heart evidence that life is still moving. Do not underestimate what can happen when you begin each day with one meaningful intention. You do not need 10 goals. Choose something simple and complete it properly. Read a few verses of Quran with understanding. Finish one task you have been avoiding. Help someone without expecting anything in return. Spend 10 quiet minutes making sincere dua. Go outside and notice the world Allah created instead of living entirely inside your thoughts. These actions may seem small, but when your heart has lost excitement, small meaningful actions are often more valuable than chasing huge emotional highs. You should also ask yourself whether you have confused excitement with happiness. Excitement is powerful, but it is temporary. A new purchase can excite you. A new person can excite you. Good news can excite you. But no human being lives in constant excitement. If you expect life to always feel intense and thrilling, normal peaceful days will begin to feel empty. Sometimes happiness is not a rush of emotion. Sometimes happiness is waking up without fear. Sometimes it is praying with a settled heart. Sometimes it is sitting with family without needing anything extraordinary to happen. Sometimes it is knowing that you handled a difficult situation better than you would have 6 months ago. Peace is quieter than excitement, but it lasts longer. Perhaps this season is teaching you to appreciate a different kind of happiness. You may be outgrowing the things that used to entertain you. What once felt exciting may no longer satisfy you because your heart is asking for something deeper. Do not automatically interpret that as a sign that your life has become meaningless. It might be an invitation to grow. Perhaps you need less distraction and more purpose, less approval and more self-respect, less comparison and more gratitude, less chasing and more connection with Allah. And remember that Allah can place barakah in an ordinary life. You do not need to become famous, wealthy, admired, or constantly surrounded by people to have a meaningful existence. A simple life lived with sincerity can contain more peace than a glamorous life lived with an unsettled heart. There are people who possess things you dream about and still cannot sleep peacefully at night. There are others who have much less yet wake up with gratitude because they have learned where to place their attention. So before saying, "I hate my life," ask yourself whether you truly hate your life or whether you are exhausted from focusing on the wrong parts of it. Before demanding a completely new beginning, look again at what Allah has already placed in your hands. There may be opportunities you have ignored, blessings you stopped noticing, relationships you took for granted, abilities you have not developed, and doors you have not even tried to open. You do not always need to run somewhere new to feel alive again. Sometimes you need to look at your existing life with new eyes. Shift your attention from what is missing to what can still be built. Shift it from what people think about you to what Allah knows about you. Shift it from yesterday's mistakes to today's opportunity. Shift it from things outside your control to the choices you can make right now. Your life may not change overnight, but when your focus changes, your heart begins to experience your life differently. And sometimes that is where happiness starts returning. Not because everything suddenly became perfect, but because you finally stopped allowing everything imperfect to hide everything that was still beautiful. 5. Sometimes your heart feels empty because it is far from Allah. There are moments when you have everything you thought would make you happy, yet something inside you still feels empty. You can laugh with people, scroll for hours, watch something entertaining, buy something new, reach a goal, receive attention, and still lie down at night wondering why your heart does not feel settled. That emptiness can be confusing because from the outside, your life may not even look bad. You may have blessings that other people are praying for, yet deep inside you feel disconnected, tired, and unable to enjoy them. Sometimes the problem is not that your life has nothing good in it. Sometimes the heart has simply moved too far away from the one who created it. Your heart was not created to survive only on entertainment, attention, success, relationships, and worldly achievement. These things can bring moments of happiness, and there is nothing wrong with enjoying the halal blessings Allah gives you, but they were never meant to become the foundation of your peace. If the heart keeps receiving everything except connection with Allah, eventually it begins to feel thirsty. You may try to silence that thirst with more distractions, but distraction cannot replace spiritual nourishment. You can keep yourself busy from morning until night and still feel something missing, because busyness is not the same as purpose, and excitement is not the same as tranquility. Think about how easily salah can become something you rush through. You stand, recite, bow, prostrate, and finish, but your mind was somewhere else the entire time. You may go through days without opening the Quran except when life becomes difficult. Dua becomes something you remember only when you desperately need an answer. Dhikr becomes rare, while your phone receives hours of your attention. Slowly, without realizing it, the heart becomes surrounded by noise, while receiving very little of what actually gives it life. Then one day you wonder, why do I feel so empty? Do not hear this as condemnation, hear it as an invitation to return. Allah is not asking you to become perfect before you come back to Him. You do not need to repair your entire life first. You do not need to wait until your iman feels strong. You do not need to feel spiritually inspired before you make dua. Come back exactly as you are. Come back while you are confused. Come back while you are tired. Come back even if you feel ashamed about how distant you have become. The door of repentance is not only for people who feel spiritually strong. It is especially meaningful for the person who realizes, I have gone too far in the wrong direction and I need Allah again. Sometimes you are waiting to feel something before returning to worship. You tell yourself, when my heart feels softer, I will pray with more focus. When I become motivated, I will read Quran. When life becomes calmer, I will make more time for Allah. But what if the softness you are waiting for comes after you return, not before? What if your heart begins healing because you continue showing up even when you do not feel anything extraordinary? This is important. Do not turn worship into another search for instant emotion. Some people pray once with concentration and expect all sadness to disappear. They read Quran for one evening and wonder why everything still feels the same the next morning. Your relationship with Allah is not a temporary treatment you use only when life hurts. It is a relationship you build steadily. Just as physical strength grows through consistency, spiritual strength also develops through repeated sincere actions. One prayer with presence becomes another. One honest dua becomes another. One page of Quran becomes part of your routine. Slowly, your heart begins remembering where it belongs. And when you make dua, stop thinking you need beautiful words. Allah already knows the things you cannot explain properly. Speak sincerely. Tell Allah what hurts. Tell Him what you are afraid of. Tell Him you do not understand why you feel empty. Tell Him that the things you once enjoyed no longer excite you. Tell Him that you are trying to find your way back. Ask Him to restore peace to your heart, strengthen your iman, guide your decisions, and remove whatever is pulling you away from Him. There is something powerful about finally admitting before Allah what you keep pretending does not bother you in front of people. Maybe you are still hurt by someone who left. Maybe you are disappointed about something you prayed for that never happened. Maybe you are tired of watching other people's lives move forward while yours seems stuck. Maybe you feel guilty about mistakes you made and have quietly convinced yourself that you are no longer worthy of peace. Bring all of it to Allah. You do not have to carry every thought alone. And do not allow guilt to become another reason to stay distant. Shaitan wants you to believe that because you have neglected Allah, you should now feel too ashamed to return. But sincere repentance is itself an act of worship. If you have fallen, return. If you have missed prayers, start protecting them. If you have made mistakes, seek forgiveness. If your heart has become attached to something harmful, ask Allah to loosen that attachment. You may have wasted months or years, but you do not need to waste today simply because yesterday went wrong. You also need to understand that closeness to Allah does not mean you will never experience sadness again. Faith does not make you emotionless. Believers still experience grief, disappointment, loneliness, uncertainty, and difficult days. But when your heart is connected to Allah, those emotions no longer have to convince you that you are alone. Your circumstances can be difficult while your heart still has somewhere to turn. You can cry and still trust. You can be disappointed and still believe there is wisdom you cannot yet see. You can feel weak and still know that Allah is stronger than everything frightening you. That changes the way you carry life. Without that connection, every problem can feel enormous because you believe you have to solve everything by yourself. But when you return to Allah, you remember that not everything is yours to control. Your responsibility is to make the best decisions you can, take the right steps, avoid what Allah has forbidden, continue making dua, and trust Him with what lies beyond your ability. There is tremendous peace in knowing that you do not have to understand every chapter before you can trust the one writing your story. Maybe the reason you have lost interest in everything is that you have spent too long chasing things that cannot satisfy the deepest part of you. You chased approval, and when people praised you, it felt good for a moment. Then you needed more praise. You chased attention, and when someone gave it to you, you felt important. Then their attention changed, and you felt empty again. You chased achievements, thinking the next accomplishment would finally make you feel complete. You reached one goal and immediately started worrying about the next. The dunya works like this. It keeps promising that the next thing will finally be enough. But the heart eventually discovers something important. There is always another thing to chase, another person to impress, another possession to buy, another milestone to reach, another comparison to make, another fear about what you may lose. If your happiness depends entirely on these things, you will constantly be moving but rarely arriving. That is why sometimes Allah allows certain things to lose their sweetness in your heart. Something you were once obsessed with may suddenly seem less important. People you depended on may become distant. Plans you thought would make you happy may not work out. And while you see only loss, perhaps Allah is removing your dependence on something temporary so you can discover something deeper. Not every closed door is punishment. Not every disappointment means Allah has forgotten you. Not every lonely season means you have been abandoned. Sometimes the quietest seasons teach you the most because there is finally less noise between you and Allah. Ask yourself when you last sat alone with no phone, no video playing, no conversation, no distraction, and simply reflected on your life before Allah. We are becoming so uncomfortable with silence that the moment nothing is happening, we reach for something. But sometimes silence reveals what constant stimulation has been hiding. It shows you how tired you really are. It reveals the resentment you have not released, the fears you keep avoiding, the gratitude you stopped practicing, and the spiritual distance you did not notice because you were constantly occupied. Give yourself some quiet time with Allah. After Salah, remain seated for a few minutes instead of immediately returning to your phone. Make istighfar slowly. Mention the blessings you can remember. Ask Allah for what you need. Read a small portion of Quran and think about what it means, rather than rushing through many pages without reflection. Build moments into your day where your heart is allowed to become still. You may be surprised by how much peace can return when your life becomes spiritually quieter. And remember gratitude. A heart far from Allah often begins seeing blessings as ordinary. You wake up, breathe, walk, eat, speak, think, see people you love, and receive another day of opportunities. Yet because these things happen regularly, you stop noticing them. Then happiness becomes dependent on receiving something unusual. But when you reconnect with Allah, ordinary things begin carrying meaning again. A peaceful meal becomes a blessing, a safe journey becomes a blessing, a sincere friend becomes a blessing. The ability to make sujood becomes a blessing, another opportunity to seek forgiveness becomes a blessing. You begin realizing that happiness was not completely absent. Your attention had simply moved away from many of the places Allah had already put it. This does not mean you must force yourself to feel grateful every second. It means you intentionally train your heart to recognize what pain and distraction caused you to overlook. At the end of the day, ask yourself, what did Allah give me today that I did not earn? Maybe it was protection from something you never even saw. Maybe it was food, health, a conversation, an opportunity, a moment of laughter, or simply another day in which you were allowed to return to Him. The more you notice Allah's mercy, the less empty life begins to feel. You should also look at what is repeatedly pulling your heart away from Him. Some environments make worship harder. Some conversations fill your heart with jealousy, anger, or gossip. Some relationships keep dragging you toward things you know are wrong. Some habits consume hours without giving anything meaningful back. You cannot constantly feed your heart what weakens it and then wonder why it feels spiritually exhausted. Be willing to remove what keeps damaging your peace. You do not have to change everything overnight, but become intentional. If something repeatedly takes you away from salah, change the routine. If certain content constantly makes you compare your life, reduce it. If a relationship pulls you into disobedience, establish boundaries. If your nights disappear into meaningless scrolling and your fajr suffers, recognize the cost. Every choice is teaching your heart what matters most. And this is where real happiness becomes different from temporary excitement. Temporary excitement says, give me something new. Spiritual peace says, help me appreciate what Allah has already given me. Excitement says, I need people to notice me. Peace says, Allah sees me. Excitement says, everything must go according to my plan. Peace says, I will do my best, then trust Allah with the outcome. Excitement constantly needs another high. Peace can exist even in an ordinary day. Perhaps what you are searching for is not the old version of happiness you once had. Maybe you do not need to become the person who was constantly excited by everything again. Perhaps Allah is leading you towards something more mature. Contentment, stability, gratitude, purpose, and a heart that does not collapse every time life changes. You can enjoy good things without worshipping them. You can love people without making them your source of worth. You can pursue success without believing success will complete you. You can make plans while accepting that Allah may redirect them. You can hope for a beautiful future without refusing to appreciate today. This is what happens when Allah returns to the center of your life. So if your heart feels empty, do not only ask, what new thing can I add to my life? Ask, what connection have I neglected? Before searching everywhere for another source of excitement, return to your prayer, return to Quran, return to dua, return to gratitude, return to repentance. Return to the quiet moments where nobody is watching and you speak sincerely to Allah. You do not need a dramatic spiritual transformation tonight. Start with one honest step. Pray the next salah with more attention than the previous one. Make one sincere dua before sleeping. Ask forgiveness for one mistake you keep returning to. Read a few verses and reflect. Thank Allah for 3 things you usually overlook, then do it again tomorrow. Do not underestimate small acts done consistently. A heart does not always become distant in one dramatic moment. Sometimes distance grows through hundreds of small acts of neglect, and closeness can also return through small acts of sincerity repeated every day. The world may still be imperfect, certain people may still disappoint you, some prayers may still be waiting for their answer. You may still have responsibilities that exhaust you and questions you cannot resolve. But when Allah becomes the place your heart returns to, life begins to feel different even before all your circumstances change. You begin finding peace without needing every problem solved. You begin finding strength without needing everyone to support you. You begin finding meaning even in ordinary days. And one day, perhaps without noticing exactly when it happened, you will realize that the emptiness is not as loud as it once was. You are laughing again. You are noticing blessings again. Salah feels different. Your heart is softer. You are no longer desperately searching for something outside yourself to make you feel alive every moment. Not because life suddenly became perfect, but because your heart finally remembered where true peace begins. So when nothing excites you anymore, do not automatically assume that your happiness has disappeared forever. Maybe this season is inviting you to stop searching outward and begin returning inward, toward your faith, your purpose, and most importantly, toward Allah. You may have wandered, but you can return. You may feel empty, but Allah can fill your heart with something deeper than temporary excitement. a peace that remains even when life does not give you everything you wanted. If nothing excites you anymore, do not believe that your heart will feel this way forever. You may simply be in a season where Allah is teaching you to stop searching for happiness in things that were never meant to carry the weight of your soul. People can disappoint you, excitement can fade, plans can change, and life can become quiet. But Allah remains. So do not rush your healing. Do not hate yourself for feeling tired. Take one sincere step at a time. Protect your peace, change your focus, stop giving people control over your emotions, and return your heart to Allah. One day you may look back and realize that this empty season was not the end of your happiness. It was the beginning of a deeper kind of peace. And if this message reached your heart today, carry it with you. You do not need a perfect life to feel alive again. You need a heart that knows where to return.